Okay, it's the end of the session. This is Addy's roadmap to success. Now, basically, Addy is a great little dog, but I think she has some impulse control issues. I also think that she doesn't see her guardian as a leader. I think she thinks it's her job to contribute to the betterment of the group by defending the yard. And this happens with a lot of dogs because we don't actually communicate what they could do to contribute to our group. For dogs, good attention and bad attention is pretty much the same thing. Most of us condition our dog to misbehave because when it comes to us, we ignore that. When it sits at our feet, we ignore that, lays down, drops the ball. All the things that we say we like, we pretty much take for granted unless we're specifically asking the dog to do it. But boy, as soon as that dog starts charging the fence or chewing the carpet or digging a hole or whatever it is that we don't like, we immediately correct them. And good attention and bad attention for dogs are pretty much the same thing. So this causes the dog to want to do the things that we don't want because that gets our attention. And we're like, but we're mad at you. And the dog's like, yeah, but you're paying attention to me. So one of the ways we went over to fix that is what we call passive training, or what I call passive training. The watchword we use is celebrate. But basically what we're doing is rewarding the dog for the things that it does on its own. A lot of times dogs have motivation to not listen to us because by not listening to us, they get what they want, our attention. So let's say the dog escapes and it's running around the yard and you're saying, come. Well, the dog knows as soon as I come to her, then I don't have any leverage anymore. She's gotten everything she wants. I'm not as interesting. But as long as I move around, I'm keeping that leverage. And so for passive training, what we do is we just simply wait for the dog to organically offer you the behavior that you want without any influence from you. So every time the dog comes to you, pet it and say, come. Every time it sits, pet it and say, sit. When it lays down, pet it and say, down or crash or chill or whatever your word is. I use this for feeding my dogs. Each of my dogs has its own unique word to eat. The camera's a little bit crooked. And so when one of my dogs, Maxwell, when it's his time to eat, I say the word lasagna. So I wait for him to eat, and then I mark it by saying the command word, marking the word with the action. And most of us say good dog, and the guardian here says good or good dog a lot. But the dog comes, you say good dog. It sits, good dog. Lays down, good dog. Well, what does good dog mean? Everything. So it doesn't mean anything. So you want to, dogs hear the first word you say the best, so you want to say just a one-word command. So the dog comes to you, pet it and say come. When it sits and so on. If it does anything weird, name all your individual toys. Give each dog a toy unique nickname. And then, maybe call it buckle up. She's got to be put on a tether because there's not a backyard, fence in the backyard. And so maybe when we attach that, you attach it and then give her a treat and say buckle up. So now, if I come and sit here after you attach the leash to me, I'm going to get a treat, and then you hear the word buckle up. It makes you chuckle a little bit, and that motivates the dog to want to do it because they can read facial expressions. So, and speaking of the yard, what I would do is I texted you that temporary fencing. What I would do is I would run it. I put a post kind of right at the edge of your grass here, buttressing your terrace, and then going straight out that way for maybe about 15, 20 feet, depending on how much. It's about, I think it's 50 yards. And then do a right turn and go there towards the tree, and then another one there, and then another one towards this corner right up here. So now you have your whole deck and that area out there, and you might have to cut it if you go out into your yard a lot so that you can actually create a doorway. Or just have one of the fence posts so you can actually move it. She's a small dog, so she can't move it on her own. But the idea is for you to be able to let her run around freely. That's going to help her get a little bit more exercise. It's less work for you. It's a little bit cumbersome, but the payoff and the benefit of the dog being able to run around freely is really high. So I would strongly recommend that. It costs you like 60, 70 bucks max, maybe 80 bucks. But now you have a kind of simulated yard for the dog to run around and have a good time. All right, let me see. We also talked about exercise. Most dogs are under-exercised. The guardian here does a good job of exercising her, but there's probably other things that the guardian could do to exercise her a little bit more. So we went over the Doggy Stairmaster, which your guardian's already watched the video on that. We also talked about scent games. We talked about getting a snuffle mat, and that's S-N-U-F-F-L-E mat. You get them on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, search for snuffle mat, the first one that'll come up is the one I showed you in the video. You already used the Omega Paw treat ball. So you can also get other treat dispensing toys. Kong is a good one, not for treats, but you put peanut butter or cheese or stuff like that in there. The dog's got to kind of work to get that cheese and that, or the whatever it is out of there, the peanut butter, and that helps satiate kind of a primal urge for them of hunting, but also distracts them, gives them something to do, and it also drains a little energy. Let me see, what else? Fetch is a great way to do it. You might want to get an eye fetch, and so that way if you're watching TV and she's asking for attention, you can tell her Olympics, and that means go get the eye fetch and play fetch with yourself. Remember, when the dog is mischievous, or if it's getting in trouble, or it's barking or doing stuff like that, ask yourself, how long has it been since I've exercised the dog? If I haven't exercised the dog within about 1 to 2 hours, the dog's probably saying, I need some exercise, I'm bored. So if you do a little fetch or a little doggy stairmaster or some scent games or whatever it is, it only takes you 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. But then the dog's like, oh man, that was a good one, I'm gonna take a nap. And you redirect the dog. We don't always have to put them to sleep, but as long as you just take off that top level and then they can kind of enjoy. Also, you can set her up for success. When you're gonna do the exercise, either one of the exercises that I show you in the videos above, you wanna exercise her first, give her 10 minutes to recover, then practice the activity. And don't try to fight with her. If there's, like, the lawn people are here, that's not a good time to do it if it gets her agitated. Now, I went through kind of a click for looks version in one of the videos above. I really started off talking about the focus exercise and how you can use that. But one of the guardian's relatives is in a chair. And as a result, and she doesn't like the chair. And a lot of dogs are powered chairs and walkers and things like that are difficult for some dogs. So what I would do is when you go to visit your brother, again, exercise her before you leave here to drive there. When you get there, since it's about an hour away, maybe go for a walk around the block or a couple walks and let her burn that energy out. When you come inside, make sure you have a bunch of bully sticks or a kneecap or a couple things to give her to chew to redirect her. That would be, I guess, distracting her. And then what I would do is I would get her used to the chair equals something good. And the way you do that is kind of similar to what I talked about in the first video above, is you have the clicker, you have the treats. And what I might have you do is just get used to doing this. We call this free shaping. You can Google it. There's a lot of different examples of it. So I might actually, now inside, like I said, is going to be easier than outside because we have all the distractions. Basically, maybe you grab a bottle like this or a can of something, put it on the floor and just sit there. And don't hold the treats up. Have the clicker here and have the treats in your hand. And as the dog's kind of looking around, and then every once in a while, she'll look at the can. As soon as she looks at the can, click. In this case, she looks at the can, click, and then she looks up at you, give her the treat. You want to get to the point where you can do this for other things. You put it here, and then she starts looking at that, and you click and get her kind of into the concept. Then when you go visit your brother, what you do is have her sit there in the room, and again, you've exercised her first, and have your brother, if possible, to have your brother-in-law just kind of sit there quietly. And as soon as she looks at him, click, give her a treat and say his name. Wait for her to look again, click, and then say her name. And same principle. After a while, 1, 2 seconds of looking before I click, and then she gets the treat and you say the name. Then 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Now, while you're doing this at the first stage, you want to do this when the chair is stationary. It's not moving around. But that would be something you'd work up to. So maybe after we've done this enough, where she's pretty much just staring at your brother-in-law, then you kind of do something else, play a game, take her for a walk, whatever it is. Then what you would do is increase the distance. Have you sitting with her on the far side of the room, have her on a leash, again, exercised first, and then you have your brother-in-law just move the chair forward about half a foot. Now you have the clicker in your hand and the treats in your hand, you have them down here, and as soon as she sees the chair move, she's going to snap her head. And remember, just like we were doing out here, first, as soon as she snaps her click, she looks away, give her the treat, say his name. And then he can move another foot and click, and if he moves and she barks, you're too close. So you need to either have him slow down, move less distance, or increase the distance between the two of you. Eventually, he moves for 2 feet. And she says 1, 2, click, and then she looks away and gets the treat. After a while, he moves for 3 feet and 4 feet. And you're elongating either the length of time that she's watching the chair move or the length of time that happens after. Sorry, there's some bunny rabbits running around behind the camera. You're lengthening how long the movement is in the chair, or how long she looks at the person. Either one, we're going to elongate both of these. So eventually, then she can actually look at the chair moving around, and then looks at you, looks away, and looks at you. Remember when she does that the first couple times, give her that jackpot. Give her like 5 treats in a row. Because now she's intentionally looking away from the thing that she used to react to. And we want to let her know that's a really great thing. Exercise is going to, like I said, set her up for success and make it easier for you to fix the problems you have, or it's going to amplify the problems you have. If you don't exercise her and go there, he moves the chair around or anything else, she's going to be more worked up than at other times. My little Marco Rubio impression there. Okay, we also talked about the importance of rules. Now, a couple of housekeeping things. Remember, for dogs, anything a dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically rewarding, including unbalanced states of mind. So if she's fearful, don't pet her. Lay your hand on her or increase the distance between her, but don't pet because you'll amplify whatever it is. When you come home and she's all excited, don't pet her or engage with her when she's excited. That's related to the excited urination. So when she's excited and we interpret that as happiness, we often like to pet or engage and reward the dog for that. But then that's an unbalanced state of mind. If I'm gonna have surgery, the last thing on my surgeon to be is excited. I want her to be calm, balanced, and focused on when she's cutting open. If you get your dog all worked up, then we wonder why they make mistakes or piddle a little bit, because they're overstimulated. So when you come home, if she's all excited in the kennel, just walk around, put your stuff away, and don't look at her, don't say anything. As soon as she settles down, start walking towards the kennel, or the long-term confinement area preferably. But you walk towards wherever it is, and she gets excited, turn and just walk away and do something else. So what you're saying through this operant conditioning is when you're calm, you're very attracted to me, I want to move towards you, I want to start letting you out. As soon as you get excited, it causes me to move away. And that's, remember, for the demand barking, that's what we call a negative punishment. Well, what is called a negative punishment is to deduct something in the equation the dog likes. So if you're inside and she barks at you for something, demand barking we call it, after the second bark, get up and leave and close the door behind you, and again, have that kind of urgent, upset, offended energy. So what she's saying is, I'm bored, play with me. Well, again, we should be probably getting her exercise ahead of the game. But if she does this and you get up and leave the room consistently, and pick a bark, first, second, or third bark, I would probably do a second or third. We want the dog to be able to bark a little bit, just not a ton, to let us know there's somebody outside. But you have to be consistent. Every time after 3 barks, she leaves. Now, if you know it's demand barking, you leave earlier. But we want to create a consequence and not yell at the dog. We just simply leave, and that's accomplishing the opposite of what we want. But if we combine it with the passive training or celebrating the things the dog does that we like, the dog's going to start emulating and offering those behaviors, because that's what gets the attention. And barking causes you to leave, the opposite of what I want. So eventually the dog will start doing the things you want. All right, going back to it. Anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward the dog for them to have the ability to make that connection. So make sure you're doing it within that 3-second window, preferably at a third of a second, then 3 seconds, but somewhere in that 3-second window, ideally. Let me see. Not good attention, bad attention from us, pretty much the same thing. So remember, don't correct her for the wrong thing. Instead, try to recreate a situation where she does the right thing. You reward her for that. And remember that if anything the dog does in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with is looked at as having your seal of approval. So not saying no is very similar to saying yes, and dogs go through life probing to determine where a boundary or limit is. So when they probe, they're expecting somebody to say no when I get too far. And so if we don't ever say no or don't have rules, we can't be consistent, we can't have good timing, and all the factors that are related to them learning are no longer engaged. So what we want to do instead is pay attention to the little things that we're doing, like petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose. If she comes up and jumps up at you or nudges you or invades your personal space or barks at you, instead of doing what she wants. Now, if she jumps up on you, what I want you to do is pull your arms up and disengage. Lean back and look up and just become the most boring person ever. When she jumps down, lean forward, tell her to sit or to lay down. If she sits or lays down, pet her under her chin and say, sit or lay down. Not good sit, just sit. If you pet her when she gets up or when she gets down from getting up, the only way to get that reward is to get back up. So, all right. So for rules, also getting back to the dog psychology part, rules are not negative. Enforcing rules not make you mean. As a matter of fact, it helps shrink the dog's world so that I'm not responsible for what's going on outside the yard. That's my mom's job, because she shows me that she's a leader by enforcing rules in the house. So clearly she's in charge of things outside the house as well. So some of the rules that I suggested were, and rules to be in place, remember, for a minimum of 90 days or as long as the problem's going on. And for a lot of my clients, it's usually longer than the 3 months. The 3 months is the perfect. And remember, you can pet her and love her and do all the stuff you want. You just can't do it. She can't come up to your level, because the first rule is not being allowed on the couch. I would order those letter X mats from Amazon, and I would put those on each one of the cushions that she likes to get on, so it helps keep her off of that. At the same time, get a dog bed Groupon, like I said, light gray, white, or light cream. Put it on the fireplace, or if you have one with a little bit of a ridge, the ones I like have kind of almost like a couch. They have a cushion, they're rigid, so there's not a lot of ruffles in it. And then they have an armrest and then a little roll in the back. And it's just a roll in the back, but it kind of looks like a C. Only 3 sides have it. The front side doesn't have it. So it emulates a couch a little bit. So if you get one of those, it's probably about that high, and you put it in front of your TV stand, you should be able to throw the treats and they stay there. All right. So the first rule, no furniture for 90 days or as long as it is. Problems are still going on. After that, if you want to break the rule and let her on the furniture, it shouldn't be to reward her for breaking a rule. Or reward her for good behavior. It should be just because you want to break the rule, not because of what she did. And when you invite her on the couch, it's a one-time privilege only for good behavior. So if she got up and started barking, she would lose this privilege. Speaking of barking, and that the furniture will help with that. But you see this door rack here, what I would do is get that white paper and get it 2 sheets so that you can put it across both sides. Have her come to the window, have her stand up, hold the treat up, and measure how high she can see, and then go an inch or 2 after that, and put the white paper all the way across, tape it to the outside of the door so she can't scratch it off. And then after about 2 or 3 months, every time she goes to the window and barks because she hears something outside, she can't see if her bark made them leave or not. And so that'll help reduce her barking. And after a while, enough repetition, after a couple months or 2, then you could take an inch, just take an X-Acto knife and take an inch, cut an inch, put a ruler. I can't think of what I want to say, and then cut an inch off, and gradually it comes an inch down, maybe every 2 weeks after the end of, starting sometime in the fall. And then basically during the fall, you're not going to have as much traffic there. By the time you get to the spring next year, combined with all the other stuff, she probably is going to be a lot less barky. Now, the video that we went over above will really help with that, but if she also comes to this door and barks at them and sees people leave while you're practicing that video, that's going to slow down your progress. So this is pretty important. Make sure you get that taken care of. And also make sure you take away the furniture upstairs, otherwise she just sees and barks and she thinks she's defending the house, and you're ingrate, you don't appreciate her efforts. All right, let me see. We also talked about not being allowed in the kitchen, or when you're eating, or when you're cooking, or not being allowed within 7 feet of you while you're eating. I would also make sure you're eating something before you feed her. Just 5 bites of a chip or cracker, then invite her to eat. So that way she sees you eating first and you have kind of dominion over the food. But there's probably other rules you can incorporate. You want to play fetch, you have to drop the ball and then sit before I even consider picking it up. Or sit before I put the leash on you. Or sit before I prepare your food. I do a lot of sitting. Sitting is a more subordinate position for dogs. So if you ask a dog to sit or get a dog to sit to ask for things, that's kind of a good leader-follower dynamic mindset shift. All right, we also talked about, let me see, well, I guess we went over pretty much everything. Petting with a purpose and passive training. Those are 2 really easy things, but they work because of the cumulative property, because of you doing a lot. You're going to catch yourself doing it wrong. When you catch yourself, don't curse and just say, oh, I screwed it up. Do it the right way. Even though you were late and your timing was bad, you'll get better at it the more you practice. But even if you make a mistake, and we learn more from mistakes than we actually do from successes, make a mistake, recognize it, practice, do a couple of good ones, and then you're going to be better at it. Now, a couple of the videos that you can reference that go over some of the things we went over in this session. One of them is the focus exercise, and you just go to doggoneproblems.com, click on dog training tips, and there's a search box on the right side of the page. Just type in whatever the thing you want, or if you're looking on the phone, it's the search box at the bottom. And just type in kitchen or invisible for how to keep the dog out of a kitchen or behind an invisible line. Calm leash, if your dog gets excited. We didn't talk about that, but most dogs get excited for the leash. There's a video for that. The focus exercise, of course. And then prime the clicker. You should, by at this point, have already primed the clicker, but if you haven't done it about 4 or 5 times, you just throw about 10 treats on the ground, and every time she licks up the treat, you click. And remember, the click is to indicate you did what I want, so don't click or give her a treat if she barks at people. And don't click for her attention. When you're telling her to sit, when her butt hits the ground, you click, and then you give her the treat, and then you say the word sit. And giving the treat and saying sit are pretty much right on top of each other. So if you get in, and you can use this, the other thing you do is put her on a leash in your house, walk around, tell her stop, sit, click, treat. Take 3 more steps, stop, down, click, treat. And do that in your house a couple times upstairs, walk down the stairs, do it a couple times outstairs, then open this door, walk out here, and start doing it in your yard. So you're helping her practice listening to you, paying attention to you, and getting rewarded for doing the things that you want. After enough practice, you can give her a command, and she's much more likely to pay attention to you because you actually helped her practice doing the things that you wanted. Let me see, what else? The shot collar, I would really, the Guardian was talking about putting an electric fence in. Electric fences are not that much cheaper than actually putting a regular fence in. So I would probably just work on, and something else you can do is use the clicker when you're sitting out here and it's nice and she's on her tether. Every time she comes to you, click and give her the treat. That's a passive training version. But every once in a while, there's nobody around, just say, come. When she comes, click and give her the treat and decide, is her word come? Is it here? Is it come here? Is it here? You were saying the dog's name and getting her to come. We'd like her to come for one specific word. So pick whichever word you want. I use the word here. And so when she's out farting around the yard and her nose is not in the ground, don't try to compete with the nose, but she's farting around in the yard. As soon as she, her nose comes up, Eddie, here. She comes to you, for clicking for the here, you would click when she's about a foot away from you. or make her sit and then click when she sits and then give her the treat, but say come or here, whatever your word is. So for me, it's kind of, I expect the dog to come and sit down when they're going to get the treat. I look at the sit as kind of the formal finishing version of it. All right, well, this is Addy's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.